See?
It's done. You're on.
What's even better is we're on the air. You know how Martin has his webcast. Now we're webcasting live from downtown Zeist. Actually, this ain't downtown Zeist, is it? This is like out in the bushes. Not even close to downtown Zeist. Are we go, boss?
I think so.
Think so? I don't see anything on our monitor. Well, good morning, gentlemen. I'm back. I'm here to talk to you today about Power BI. Now, any of you guys have any experience with Power BI? Raise their hands. Wow. You lie. Anyway, yeah. I promise not to pick on you, by the way. Well, no, I don't promise. I don't promise anything. Have you heard of Power BI? Okay. Well, that's what we're here to talk about today is Power BI. Now, click. We're going to have the intros, which will be quick because you guys all know me. Well, I'm going to talk about what is Power BI, what it is, not what it is not, because it is what everybody says it is. We're going to have a tour of what Power BI produces. And then we're going to look at the two moving parts, pretty much soon to be three moving parts of Power BI and how they integrate and how they confuse the heck out of everybody as to which one to use for what. Well, I'm going to hopefully cut through that so you will understand when you do start which you do use for what function. Hey, how are you?
Morning.
Good, good, good. Wow. This is Martin's brother, right?
It is, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Oh, I forgot. I'm live on air, but that's fine. Can we turn the camera? No? Okay, fine. Then I'm going to talk about the data story around Power BI, which is quite a wild and crazy story. And then I'm going to talk about conclusions that I've drawn, and hopefully we can answer some questions. So who am I? Most of you have seen me before. I'm an independent developer. I started out in 1985. How many of you were born then? I know you were. As a Lotus 1-2-3 guy, which was pretty wild. So I was teaching Lotus 1-2-3, and I was developing in Lotus 1-2-3. And in fact, I wrote a program in 1985 that is still used in some places. It's because they have a computer in the corner that just runs 1-2-3, and it does this one thing for them, and they won't stop using it. How does that work? I should get an award for that. Before that, I was a commodity trader, which meant I bought corn and soybeans, and I put together boats of grain to come to Rotterdam, of all places, and I traded currencies, and I hated it. I just hated it. You know what they say, that a commodity trader sleeps like a baby. He wakes up in the night screaming, right? That's the whole thing. And I wanted to do something that actually wasn't just BS. So when I ran into spreadsheets, I said, I can do this. This is because I was sort of like an idiot savant with spreadsheets, like me immediately, right? I still am. And so I started doing spreadsheets for a living, which was crazy. And I've done it for like 33 years, 32 years now, which is pretty cool. And in the meantime, I've worked with a lot of companies, Microsoft, Citibank, Bristol Myers, Inco, Labatt's, you know, the beer company, Liberty Global, who own UPC here. I've been coming to Holland a lot in the last 10 years. And the Bank of Montreal, ironically, in Toronto and in Chicago. So who are you guys? One thing I've never asked, I've always come here quickly. Who are you? I know you're Edwin, but I don't want your name because I'll never remember it. But what's your relationship to reporting, right? You know, or you must have some relationship to reporting.
Not really, just interesting.
Just interesting. That's good. That's good. That's fine. You?
I'm developing for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where reporting always has been the downside of our products.
Yep.
Right now, I'm leading a development department and looking into ways to extend our reporting capabilities.
Wow. Well, then you're in the right place. Know of So you do everything in spreadsheets like everybody else, right?
Mostly.
Yeah, right. And distribute them around and copy them into PowerPoint slides and stuff like that.
And PDF documents.
And PDF documents, interactive PDF documents, of course. No, there is no. You, sir.
Well, the software we create has recording in it. Find reports.
Right. Yeah.
One thing we do.
Like
We do a lot of reporting journal.
Yep.
But also in PDF, live.
spreadsheet reports or
Yeah,
reporting services reports. Yeah. You, sir.
I work now for 5 years in a company that builds call center software, contact center software in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And my responsibility within the company is database programming and reporting.
Reporting. There you go.
In the former company I worked, I did a lot with Excel, database applications.
Right. There you go. All the good stuff. Okay.
Providing reports.
Providing reports. Yeah. Good. You, sir.
Software developer, we are using Microsoft Report Server and Click.
Yeah. ClickView. Yeah. Right.
We are probably going to use Power BI instead of Click.
There you go.
So I'm very interested.
Yeah, I like to hear that. No, I mean ClickView's fine, but yeah, I understand. You, sir. Yeah, you. Well,
Software developer. For the last year, working for a company in the agriculture sector.
agriculture sector. What does that mean? Like what kind of agriculture?
Just the cows and
Cows. So animals, not sorghum.
yeah. So,
Okay.
Just yesterday, I talked to a guy who had a big Excel sheet and
It starts to fall over. All right. You as brother, you guys look kind of similar, actually. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. You guys all shave your heads here. I noticed that. Well, a lot of you do. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, software development background, we do a lot of small projects. I did 2 months, we built a small program and a project.
Mhm.
And always we gather a lot of data in those.
Right.
We need a way to get it out.
Yeah.
So, with a lot of different techniques and also experimenting.
Power BI. This is David Hopa, who's going to be speaking this afternoon about Excel charting. I know who he is, so I don't care, right? Okay. But he's an Excel guru, and you work for who? Dutch Insure. So he has to be real careful around Acme. I hear he's gotta be quiet, right? He's in the bowels of the enemy. But anyway, he will be speaking this afternoon about Excel. So I hope you catch that. The reason I asked that is I've seen some of you guys, and I've done this. I've never done this before. I've never asked a group because the group is a little small. It's really important to know who you guys are. That I am actually preaching to the choir. I mean, you guys are all, you get it and you have an understanding of it, with the exception of Edwin here. Edwin, who's sort of here for fun, but that's good. You'll learn something. I know you will. That's awesome. So what is Power BI? Everybody, Power BI is like it's like teenage sex, right? Everybody talks about it, but not too many people are doing it. Okay, but as a grandfather, I think, well, they are doing it, you know. But that's another story, right? But actually, I haven't quite got to that point with my grandkids, but I did with my kids. But Power BI is a dashboard creation tool, plain and simple. But it's not just a dashboard creation tool, it's an interactive dashboard creation tool. And it publishes in a browser interface. Therefore, it coughs up its results on any device that has browser capabilities. This is huge. It is a business analytical tool, a BI tool. Now, business intelligence is a term that's been abused over the years, and Microsoft basically took it over. Basically, BI is supposed to be business intelligence. It was originally OLAP, which was super denormalized data tables, huge amounts of data, but they were so denormalized. In other words, you didn't have relationships between all the tables. Everything was flattened out so that you could do very fast reporting, drilling down on time axes, on business organization access, on product access. It was a fantastic capability. Now, BI has turned out to be a lot more now. They've sort of, Microsoft did a sort of attacked it and took it over. But the fact is that Power BI is an analytical BI tool, but it's also a really powerful reporting tool. Every one of you guys talk about reporting, right? Yes, you can use it to connect up with machine learning and all this forecasting capabilities, but its fundamental purpose that I promote, whether I'm right or wrong, is as a reporting tool. And because it's in HTML, because it produces web-based output, it has the ability to hit any device anywhere and be used by people who don't understand Excel and don't know how to use computers hardly at all, right? The C-level guys. And for example, here's an example from one of my, not one of my clients, one of my, a partner that I work with, a company in Canada or that's responsible for all of North America. This is the kind of thing you produce with Power BI. All right, which is a graphical interface with charts and data and pretty pictures and crap like that, right? And that's what everybody wants, is pretty pictures, pretty charts. This is what this delivers. But what's amazing about this is it's like a duck. You know what a duck floating along, you know, all calm but paddling like hell underneath. Right? That's a duck, right? Okay, well, this is like a duck. Everything is underneath. All the parts that come into producing this is what we're going to be talking about today, because without all that underpinning, without all that stuff leading up to it, you can produce this once. And that's what everybody's doing in the industry. They're producing this kind of stuff once and poorly. I'll hopefully show you today in the 3 sessions ways to get around that. But the coolest thing about this is on the left. Now, this is just a static photo because they couldn't give me access to the whole thing for real. See those boxes on the left? If you click on one of those boxes, all of this changes to reflect what you chose. If you choose business analytics on the left, it'll show you the stats only for business analytics. That'll ripple through the whole thing. That for even a CFO could do that, right? Okay, sorry. Can't help but say stuff like that, right? And get value. The problem with a CFO is it better frickin' be right, okay, right? Or you got a problem, which again comes down to what I was saying about the value and the quality and the reliability of the data sourcing. This is another chart from the same company, which they're willing to say. It's called Comparex. They're a licensing company. They operate in Europe here, and they're relatively new in North America, and I partner with them to do Power BI presentation. I didn't build these are theirs, but one of the coolest things everybody likes is the geographical, where you can have values and bigger circles based on values on geographics and all these things. Now, the fact of the matter is it's really easy to make pretty pictures in Power BI, and that's what everybody likes, and that's great. It takes away a huge amount of the complexity that you've had of trying to do it in Excel and then publishing those to PowerPoint. And on top of it all, when you publish them to PowerPoint, they're static. These are not static. These are live. There's real data underneath these things so that you can make changes on as you're sitting there and see the results in real time. It's an analytic tool, but it's also a reporting tool. Some people have trouble understanding the difference between the two, but the big need in business is for reporting. Now, these are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the kinds of things that I've created. These were just samples, and I'm going to show you these quickly. Every one of these is fed from an Excel file. We're going to see how you can feed it from an unbelievable number of combination of sources. But each one of these is fed from an Excel file, which is pulling data from either SQL Server or from SQL Azure or from a web page out in the cloud somewhere, right? And so this here, for example, is a days, months, year to date. This is my standard mine example where I have data from a mine in a state somewhere, and I've changed all the names of all the locations to mines in Australia. I've changed all the numbers, so I mean, it's all safe, right? I'm not giving anything away. But the concept is that I can say, give me all mines of this type or in this zone. And it automatically changes instantly to show the data, day, month to date, and year to date for that zone. I can say, let's look at the eastern section. Let's look at Ford, whatever, for whatever reason they call it Ford. Let's choose a particular mine, and let's look at multiple mines together. Now, these mines don't have anything. Let's see if we can find one that has something. And so what you've got then is the ability to navigate your report with a few clicks on the screen. Let's close this out and look at the next one. This one here is called a dashboard. And what you saw there was a report, which is a single screen with a single set of things. A dashboard is a series of reports culled together into a larger composite. It's sort of like a book with chapters, right? And so when you go into a dashboard, you can have certain information on the main top level, as you'll see here. And then you drill down. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Remember, this is the internet. It's pretty fast. And what you've got here now is a dashboard, which shows year-to-date tons, sum of total tons, and each of these is actually a chart. If you click on it, it drills down to a sub-report, or a sub-dashboard, which drills down to another sub-dashboard, which drills down to another. And what you end up with is the ability to build a story that has multiple chapters that your users can get access to directly from one interface. This is actually one of my favorite. I love this. This is very cool. There's a whole bunch of different chart types as I'll show you, many of which you have to figure out how you would use them, but they're there. What else have we got? We've got the ability to create what I like is a text-based report. By text, I mean it's not charts, it's just numbers, right? So in lieu of a banded chart or a banded SQL Service Analysis Services output, you can actually create them and show them in Power BI. So we'll look at this. In this particular one, I can go in and I can say, I want to see everything from the Guelph office. And it will filter it down and show, oh, there's only one. What if I say Windsor, which I think has more business? There you go. What's interesting about this is the opposite. What you would think, this is a receivables chart. Therefore, you actually want as little as possible information to show as on your receivables chart, because you don't want to see stuff on this. But for example, you can go in here, show me all offices, everything over 120 days, for example. And here we go. Select all, select all. This is interesting. You know, when you're doing a presentation, they say, no matter what happens, act as if it was supposed to happen. You ever heard that saying? I've used this for many a day, this chart, many a presentation. It's never acted like this. So, and I'm going to stick with it for a second before I abandon it. I'm not sure, is the internet's running slow today? I don't know. Oh, maybe my computer's pushing it too hard. But anyway, what I've got is the ability to say, give me everything that's current, everything that's over 120 days, everything 31 to 60 days. It's dynamic. The point I'm making is dynamic, and it's numeric, and it's available to any device that can handle a browser. There's an interesting one here I'm not going to spend any time on. This one here. This was the charting all the Trump and Clinton polling for the whole election for 18 months, with Clinton above the whole time except on election day. I don't understand that one. That's pretty strange. So, but you can see the chart. It was quite encouraging. Oh, it looks like, you know, I mean, sorry, I gave away my political bent, but say la vie. So what we've got here is the ability to chart data, present corporate data in a way that we've been doing with Excel for a very long time. But again, like I've said before, there's a problem with Excel is how do you get it to the consumers of the information in a way that they can get value out of it quickly, easily, and makes sense. This applies to all sizes of business, of all types, in all markets, in the whole entire world. Absolutely. And if you use it right, you can use it can be justified right to the smallest business, right to the largest mega corporation, which of course the large mega corporation is where Microsoft wants to sell. That's all they care about, right? But the fact is that's only a small slice of the total number of potential clients out there. It's perfect for financial reporting, for income statements, balance sheets, budgeting and forecasting. I just did a solution for a client in Toronto where every department manager can call up a Power BI screen and see their expenses year to date, detailed by in their department by the various things they're spending. And when they open it, they get only their information, only the information for their department, which used to be set around in a bunch of spreadsheets. It's great for production reporting. I'm working with one client on a production reporting. It's great for HR. It's great for marketing, for sales. In fact, unknown unknowns. It's really usable for any scenario, anywhere. Now, my next trick is to get the slide to go to the next slide. There we go. Thank you. Next. There we go. Now it gets complicated. I'm going to go and show you Power BI and the two flavors of it. Do you guys raise your hand if you know that there's two products called Power BI? Do you know that? No? Okay, now this is good because you guys then don't have any preconception as to how this works. There are two Power BI products. One is called Power BI, basically .com, which is a web-based product. The other one is called Power BI Desktop, which is a Windows client-based piece of software. PowerBI.com should be used for publishing the results of your effort. Power BI Desktop is where you pull together all the moving parts of the data, all the relationships, all the calculations, and you create, you draw your reports, you create your dashboards, you pull it all together, and then you publish that to PowerBI.com, which then delivers. A problem with it is that Microsoft has given you the ability in PowerBI.com on the web part to do a lot of stuff, but not anywhere near enough stuff. And most people started with PowerBI.com and very quickly found, well, this doesn't do that, and this doesn't do this, and this doesn't do that. Well, it's a web application, therefore, it's harder for us to build it. What we'll do is we'll build a Windows app, which basically does the same thing, and then does those things that you need. So they built Power BI Desktop, which at a certain superset of functionality is exactly the same as PowerBI.com, but it has a lot more depth, a lot more capability. Problem is, people still use PowerBI.com and they find it frustrating. So here's the deal. You do not do development in PowerBI.com. Rule. You just publish to it and you expose it to the world. You do development in Power BI Desktop. So Power BI, as I say, it's the platform for distributing your dashboards and reports. It's where you manage the security of who can see what that's being delivered by your PowerBI.com, which means you can define members who have right to see information or not. So you have security at that level. You could also define who gets to see, when a person logs on, what information they see. Like, for example, if they're only responsible for one department, they get only that information. That's done at powerbi.com level because that's out in the browser and is independent of Windows. You can use it to aggregate multiple reports from multiple Power BI sources. Absolutely, that's true. But that's a sort of an over-the-top capability. And you can also, with powerbi.com, deliver what are known as content packs, which are one of the weirdest things I've ever heard of. What you do is you give your users the ability to, a smorgasbord. You guys know what a smorgasbord is? That's a Scandinavian word. And for some reason in Canada, we use the word smorgasbord, a buffet. All right, you know what a buffet is? That's a smorgasbord. I don't know why we use that word, but it's a buffet. You can give your users a buffet of choices, and they can create their own dashboards and their own configuration of the things that matters to them, which is a great idea in principle. But I don't know a whole lot of users that are capable of doing that kind of thing, and I mean that with all disrespect. Right? It's just, let's be real here. Now, Power BI Desktop, on the other hand, is where you create all of your reports. You actually build it, right? This is where you manage the data sources. And the data sources you see are huge and far. You add mathematics in the form of what are known as DAX formulae, which allows you to add analytical calculations into your presentation, which you, in a perfect world, you do not need all that often. But when you do need it, you really need it, right? Somebody's going to say, well, I want this. Oops. And the only way you can do it is using these DAX functions, which are not fun, but they're powerful. You create all your UI pieces, and then you publish it. Now, let's go to the next one. Let's have a look at Power BI. I know you didn't come here to just hear me talk. Let's look at Power BI. Well, there we are. We are in Power BI. This is the interface, and this is the particular slide I was looking at before. I'm going to tell you something that hopefully will make you feel better as you get into this. This is a very confusing interface. It's a very confusing technology. And it's not what I would call intuitive. Now, you guys have all used Excel, right? Don't you find Excel, when you move into a new thing in Excel, it tends to be intuitive? You know, oh yeah, I think I can figure out how this works because it's sort of like the stuff I did before, right? And Excel seems to flow that way as you learn it. Power BI is not one of those things. You have to learn in Power BI. Well, how do I do this? Okay, you close your left eye, you put your arm behind your back, and you turn around 3 times. Then that's how you do it. It's like, it's full of those kinds of things. You go, how am I supposed to know that? Oh, well, I knew that. And that's a problem with Power BI. I must admit, it is not massively intuitive. And so what I'm showing you here and in my other sessions, one of my other sessions, is a way to cut through that, because everybody has to figure it out. You know what a shotgun is, right? What does a shotgun do? It sends a matrix of little pellets out to kill anything that gets in its way, right? Well, Power BI is a classic shotgun software. It tries to be all things to all people, all at the same time, right? And in the end, it has risk of being nothing to nobody. That's a problem. So what I'm going to show you is hopefully reduce the confusion, but when you leave, you'll be less confused about some things that I tell you and more about others. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way this has to be. It's a long process, but it's worth it in the end. On the left-hand side, you have, this is where the brains of Power BI is. This is where you do, now remember, I'm in powerbi.com, which is at app.powerbi.com. It's actually a browser page that I'm logged in at using my Office 365 login. Here's my existing dashboards. Here's my existing reports. And here's data sets. Now, all of Power BI, both Power BI and Power BI Desktop, are based on you have a set of data. All you're doing is showing tableized data. That's all you're doing, right? So you get your data into it by either getting data here in powerbi.com and saying, I want it from a file, I want it from a database. I can import all the data, but I'm telling you right now, do not do this here because this is powerbi.com. This is not where you do the work. You do the work in Power BI desktop. It makes no sense, but that's the way it goes. What it is they built powerbi.com, they put a bunch of functionality, and then they decided to make Power BI desktop. And by then, they couldn't take all that stuff out of powerbi.com, right? So they had to leave it there. The problem is now people come to powerbi.com and they want to do these things in Power BI desktop and then publish it, right? It means that if you're not a Windows shop, you got a problem, right? Because it's only a Windows app, Power BI desktop. So but the point is you will find very quickly that it's very limiting if you do work in powerbi.com. But here's the concept. Everything's based on data sets, which are sets of data. What a concept, hence the name. And so here in this particular one here, I have a data set that has 3 tables in it. And each of these tables has a whole set of fields in it which have data in it. Now I've imported these from a data source. If I want to create a new report here, I would drag this information onto this screen and create my reports and save it as a report. And I can do that in powerbi.com. But don't. Like, there's a whole pile of technology here that you can use, but don't. That makes no sense, but you'll see it in a minute. That once you understand why, yeah, I sort of understand it. Once you've created a report, you save it, it shows up here in the reports section. And once you call those reports together, they show up in a dashboard. So you can add a series of reports to a dashboard, then you can publish this dashboard to individuals by sending it to them personally, or by publishing it and the group of people who you've assigned to this particular subgrouping, which up here, you see I have a group called My Workspace, which is the default. I have min, max, average, model off, OP Trust. If I go into OP Trust, I can have a series of reports and dashboards in that group, work group, and I can assign certain individuals based on their email address, either if it's a corporate domain or it's the Microsoft say only these people can come into this space and see these charts. So it's secure. And these people, this person can edit anything, or this person can only view. Do you understand that? And so you pretty much got everything covered that way. You have your super users, and then you have your viewing users. And then plus you have a featured dashboard, which is the one that comes up at the beginning. So this is Power BI. But let's go out of this, and I'll show you something else. Let's open this up from current slide. Let's now look inside Power BI Desktop, and this is where we're going to spend our time. That screen looks an awful lot like that screen. And it's because it is fundamentally the same. If I open Power BI Desktop, it is a Windows app. Remember what I'm saying. It's a Windows app. It's a free app that you download from Microsoft. You download it, you install it on your machine. One of the problems with that is that you have to convince your IT department to allow you to install it on your machine, which could be an issue unless you have that kind of control. How many of you have that kind of control? All right, you guys are weird, right? You're lucky. You're lucky, right? This is a serious problem. You've got to convince IT that this is a good thing or that you need this. So anyway, when you open Power BI Desktop, it looks exactly the same with the fields on the right and everything on the left. Let's open an example. So if I open a file here, I'm opening a file, a Windows file that has the extension PBIX, or I create a new file and I save it with the extension PBIX. Those files are the actual guts of your Power BI presentation. you then publish that file to powerbi.com, and the data and the charts and everything gets sucked up into the cloud and put on the server behind powerbi.com under your account for accessibility by your users. You see this word here, publish. This is how you take what you've done in Power BI Desktop and you've pushed it up there. The funny thing is there are some people who actually distribute this file for their users to read, which is completely insane. And it's because they haven't figured out the relationship between these two. And frankly, Microsoft has done a bad job of explaining that. I'm sorry, Microsoft. I mean, I don't criticize them very often. Don't look at me like that, Martin. But this is a messaging problem. They just don't seem to know how to message it. Their solution is words, lots of words, rather than a few well-pointed words that explains how something's doing. So here we have it. I'm in my working space. In this particular scenario, and in the interest of time, what I've done is I've imported data from one of my sources. Now, Excel is the default source because this technology started as part of Excel. You've heard of Power View. This is Power View that was originally written as an ActiveX type of technology, and then they moved it to HTML5 and it became independent of Excel, and it became part of, I believe, the SQL group, and it took off with a life of its own. But its default is that you can take Excel grid table data and use it as a data source for your presentations. But you can also connect directly to SQL Server. So you could go in here and click on SQL Server. You could type in the server, the database. You could even create a SQL statement right here, although there's other ways to get around that, as we'll see. But the main thing is you can connect directly to SQL Server. You can also connect to analysis services. So if you already have an OLAP server, you can actually tap into that data that's already pre-aggregated and pull it up and use it as a source. You can link to a CSV source. So if somebody's spitting something out. Web is interesting. You can connect to a table on a website and say, I want that table to be a table in my Power BI that I use for creating charts. Alternatively, as you'll see, use this to connect to Excel files that are loaded in SharePoint, because SharePoint actually is in the web, and if you have an Excel file in a document library, you're treating that file and its tables and sheets as if they are objects in the web, and it really is an easy way to get connected to that data. But look at this. When I went to more, look at all the different choices of data sources. Oracle, DB2, MySQL, Postgres, Sybase, Teradata, all various flavors of Azure, Hadoop. Hadoop, how do you like that? So one of the big pushes is with big data to say, I'm going to be able to connect to my Hadoop data store of pre-aggregated results. I mean, I don't think you want to go to the raw data in Hadoop, but you want but maybe I'm wrong if you have hours to wait for it to recalculate. But look at, you've got a Dynamics, of course, which is Microsoft's own accounting software. You can connect directly to that. Salesforce. Here's SAP HANA database, which is SAP's big data database. Salesforce is a really interesting one in that you can connect to Salesforce data, pull it up, and create your Power BI solutions from that. You've got all these different choices, or standard ODB sources, or standard OLADB sources. All that is possible in this technology. Now, the problem with that, and this is my beef, it's not a beef. This is my projection of the reality. The reality is that to get at that data, it's corporate data, you got to go through a lot of hoops, security hoops, in order to be allowed to even get at that data, right? And that is a problem with this image. Microsoft, frankly, has a belief that it's easy to get access to data, right? You just talk to IT and they'll give you the data, right? You're laughing, right? It doesn't work that way, does it? You say, ooh, why do you need that data? Ooh, I don't think you should have that data, right? This is the reality of the business world. So even though you can connect to all these things, getting connected to them creates a political hornet's nest of BS that it really sometimes gets to the point where it's hardly worth the trouble. And the alternative, of course, is that IT themselves are the only ones who can do these solutions. For one thing, that's not the target. That's not true. And second of all, even in IT, the guys who build these templates have to deal with the DBAs to get access to the data, and that's a problem even within IT. So what I promote of using Excel as an aggregator behind the firewall, and of course this isn't going to work for big data, this isn't going to work for huge data sets, but it's going to work for 99% of business needs, frankly. Maybe not IoT, you know, where you have millions of records coming at you from all those directions. But that's still 90+% of the potential market. And for all what you guys said, it's perfect. So you bring it together in Excel, you together, and then you publish that result set to SharePoint, and then that goes up into Power BI. Just the summary data in the form of tables like this that have records within them. And if you go here, this case, we have records. We can look at all these different tables, and here's the records that are up in there, inside this Power BIX file. Now remember something, they're inside this file right now. But when you publish this file to powerbi.com, it gets pushed up into the cloud to Microsoft Server, and then it gets displayed using powerbi.com. But it starts here. But here's an important thing. This data here is not necessarily inert. Once you've published this, say I have a connection to a source, you can tell powerbi.com to automatically refresh that source 8 times a day, or once an hour if you have it in SharePoint. And so if the data changes, it will automatically refresh without having to go back to this file and republish it. Therefore, your users, if they're using an Excel file, they can just keep typing away and saving it happily, and every hour, Power BI is going to pick up and produce a fresh result. So your auto refresh will be instant, and that's because SharePoint is outside of the firewall. If you have to pull corporate data from inside the firewall, you have to have a data gateway that goes through the firewall and to your corporate data internally. It has to actually run on a machine sitting in somebody's office with a 64-bit version of Windows and a 64-bit of Power BI running on a gateway running on it, which is fine if you're IT, but it's not great if you're just a normal human being producing company reports, right? Who doesn't want to go through the third degree? Why are you doing this? Which decade do you want it? All those questions that you get from IT. And it sounds like I'm hard on IT. Well, I am. They're not flexible enough on giving this kind of, and I think there's a naivete. Is that a Dutch word? Naivete? It sounds French to me. About what people really can have access to in companies. So anyway, what you do here is you say, I want to see some data. Here's how I'm talking about the data source as much as anything else. The data, without the data, you have nothing. I can make all kinds of pretty pictures, and I really almost don't care about that. What I care about is the plumbing underneath it, because if I can create pretty pictures once, I've accomplished zero. I've accomplished nothing. I've created an expectation from senior management that I can't satisfy more than once, right? So you have to have the plumbing in order to be able to make this a real production solution. But if I want to, I can go in here and I say, I'd like to see the total value, which is in this case, tons. And I want to see it by category. So now if I expand this, all I did was select these items in this field list on the right, and it's automatically created my chart. Like, it's just too darned easy to create something in this, which is actually good and bad, right? Am I saying it does good demo? This does really good demo. But the hard thing is to make it a production application, right? And it's not because it can't be, it's just that there's so much confusion and noise around doing that. So I can do other things with this. Now, you're at the point, guys, where I have to show you actually what you do with it. Here is the owner field. Now watch this. I'm clicking in an open area, and this says owner. Is HR, is IT, or planning, right? But watch this. If I click on this button here, this is called a slicer. It converts this rectangle to an option, set of option buttons. And watch what happens. If I click IT, it automatically changes the chart on the left. It's reflecting the choice I made, because all of the data is related automatically. You don't have to, because these are from one table, they're obviously related. So you're applying a filter easily. But you can also create diagrams where you can actually have relationships, one-to-many relationships, many-to-many relationships between these tables that you've imported, that you create here. Remember, you can only do this in Power BI Desktop. You cannot create relationships in PowerBI.com. But PowerBI.com can use these relationships. So that alone is the reason why you have to do the development in Power BI Desktop, not .com. And so by using these relationships, I don't have to denormalize all my data and have one big mother of all tables in order to feed my source. I can bring in fact tables and dimension tables and be efficient with my data. And once I start talking about fact tables and dimension tables, I'm talking about OLAP. I'm talking about the true flavor of traditional BI. That's all here. Plus, I can create custom functions. So, for example, this val is the sum of the value field in this table. So I've created a function here. So you can go here and you can say modeling, new measure. They're actually called measures, right? So you can create a measure that takes and calculates certain things about a field or multiple fields. So you could, for example, have a field, a measure that's some products, quantity times price, to come up with the total. You can have a field, in this case, that's just the sum of the quantity column. But what's important, and this is, now we're getting into something kind of bizarre. It seems bizarre, but it's really not easy, is the whole idea of context and the DAX capabilities of the data model that started in Excel that has now migrated to here. It's also in Excel and it's also here. It's the exact same thing. So if I have the sum of value field, for every record there is a total value. If I drop it into a chart like this, which these are value fields, if I click on HR only, it says in the context that I am staring at, I want the sum of only the fields that have HR in the grouping field. It's a standard slicer scenario. And you create these DAX functions, which can be as simple as a sum, but they can also be very, very complicated and very, very convoluted. And I personally have seen that that is a very small slice of the potential use of this product. Right? There is always a tendency for people to make things more complicated than they are, right? If you're doing reporting, it's sums, it's percentages, it's ratios, it's straightforward. Most business reporting does not need all those high-end DAX capabilities. There is date capabilities, date calculations, all kinds of ways you can say, take a date and find out its year and find out its month. A lot of that can be done at the source, by the way. You do it before the data gets in here. So all of that capability is built into here. I personally do it before it gets in here as much as possible. All right? Now, this is how this works. You've got all kinds of interesting. Look at this chart type, just for fun. I click on this, and it changes to that type of chart. I click on this, it's that type of chart. I click on that, it looks the same. Here's 100% chart, vertically, etc. Here's a line chart. Here's an area chart. Here's a stacked area chart. Let's see if I can, let's put grouping in there and see if it comes out differently. No, it's not. That's fine. Here's your classic bubble chart, which of course doesn't apply. There's your pie chart. There's all these different chart types that are available to you, including a map type chart, where if you have a set of data and you have a field that has country names and values beside it, it will assign automatically to the country or to the city or to the postal code, or in the US the zip code. It has the intelligence to pick that up, and you can actually do it right down to as granular as you want. You could actually have it for all areas in the Netherlands, right? You could have a chart that has multiple circles as to which areas this is happening by having the names of the towns, and it's smart enough to understand that. So to me, the creation of the charts and the creation, oh, we're almost out of time. The creation of the actual output is actually the easiest part compared to the data part, because you have to prep the data ahead of time. Make sure the data is clean. Make sure the data is properly structured and imported in to create your chart. Let's go back to this. Well, let's go back to this. There we go. Now let's go back to my PowerPoint slide. Oh, by the way, let's do something first. Once I've created this, I can save this. This is called OP Trust for New. And I'm saving it, in this case, back to the place on my personal network. This is not going to the cloud. It's just in behind the firewall, my personal network. It's a PBX file, which I can email around or move around or save as another name, etc. But an alternative now is to publish this report to wherever I want to publish it to. So I'm going to publish it. I have these various destinations. I'm going to publish it to a place called SharePoint or whatever. I'm going to go select, and it will send the contents, the settings, the charts, the data, the connections of this to Power BI's server. And it says it's published to Power BI. I can open this file now in powerbi.com, and it will show up in my browser by clicking on it. So remember, you build it in Power BI Desktop, you then publish it to powerbi.com, and then people consume this either by going to Power BI themselves, logging in with their Office 365 account, and they will then have a choice of all the different things they personally are subscribed to, right? So an administrator says, this person is in this group, this group, this group. When they open it, they will only see their information they should see, right? There's your security, right? And at the source, if a person gets fired or quits or has another job or retires or dies, you can go in and you can delete them or give them different responsibilities as an administrator. And now you're looking at the result of my chart of my Office desktop work, showing as the world's most boring Power BI presentation. And you can put multiple charts together and create the world's most stupidly, ridiculously complex one, right? So the answer hopefully is somewhere in between, right? So let's go back. Hey, I've been around a long time. Does it show? And this is the most exciting thing I've seen in a very long time. It frustrates me. The message is pretty blurred on what the heck you're actually supposed to do with this. But I've learned that I don't accept it, but I've learned that that's pretty common, that there is a confusion about what the heck this is all about. And I've worked really hard to narrow down a way of actually using this, that you can actually create stuff that actually works, and it works today, and it works tomorrow, and the next day, and blah, blah, blah. That's really all we want, right? We want to produce results. So the whole idea of data sources, which I sort of got into before, is if you're going to connect to corporate data, you have to go through the corporate firewall. That's a pain point because you have to convince IT to allow you to do that. You have to have a gateway sitting running on a machine. Guess where that's likely going to happen? If you're lucky, IT will manage that, which means that IT will tell you what information you can have and what you can't have whenever they have time to get around to doing it. I'm sorry, but it's a fact, right? The alternative, as you'll see, is to use Excel, which I'm going to show you. Let's go on to this. One of the problems with Power BI Desktop is getting it installed can be a problem. But that's the minimum problem because it's free. That's one good thing, right? Because it's from Microsoft. It's not going to take over my network and cost somebody a security manager a job. So you really can get Power BI Desktop installed. Remember, your users, your consumers do not need or even want Power BI Desktop. The only people that should Power BI Desktop are ones who create these charts and create these dashboards and create these reports. The consumers just use PowerBI.com to view it in their browser. And that is F-R-E-E. What's that in Dutch? Right, okay, whatever. Yeah, I shouldn't have asked. What was it this morning? I asked something else. Some big, you know what I'm getting at. I'm sorry, I'm making fun of your language. It's not your language, it's your pronunciation is unique. So I guess I should have said this morning, Goedemorgen. How's that? Is that all right? Not bad? Okay, fine. So anyway, this is Power BI Desktop is only needed by the administrator, not by your users. PowerBI.com is free. There are some things that you do in Power BI Desktop that may force your users to have the paid version of PowerBI.com. And that is $10 a month, unless you have an E4 or E5 level Office 365 account in your company, in which case the professional version is included. It's not free, but it's included in what you pay. It's still $100 a month a year per user, US funds, which is what? In Canadian, that's like $560. No, it's not that bad, but it feels like it sometimes. But it's still worth it, especially once you start to really produce this stuff. So I'm going to create, we're done in time here. I'm going to create a simple Excel. In fact, I did showed you a simple Excel base because that data came from Excel that I charted in that slide. And there was an awful lot to cover, so I only was able to touch the surface. I wanted to make sure that we got the basics and you understood the difference between Power BI and Power BI Desktop, and that you understood what Power BI was and not what it's not, because it is everything that it says it is. It's just that it's not easy to make it happen without a lot of knowledge. Power BI is what business leaders have been looking for decades. The whole idea of copying the chart from Excel into the PowerPoint slide. How many of you done that? Like everybody, right? That is like every analyst's and manager's nightmare every month, every quarter, every year. Well, with this, what you do when you do a PowerPoint presentation, you could embed it in PowerPoint. The alternative is to have Power BI open in the background and your PowerPoint presentation, and you just alt tab back and forth between the two while you're talking, right? So you have your PowerPoint that says this, and then you switch over to Power BI and you show them what they're looking for. So you can integrate them that way. But ultimately, you can give that Power BI dashboard to that manager, and he or she can then actually get the information themselves, at which time they're going to ask for something new that you never thought about, right? You know that's going to happen, right? This started with spreadsheets. It was funded by traditional BI. It has taken off because of ubiquitous data sources. You know what the word ubiquitous? Now what's ubiquitous in Dutch? I hate to think. Oh God, yes. Ubiquitous is the word, right? We've got data everywhere coming out of our eyeballs, right? And now everybody wants to make sense out of it. This is a tool that allows you to do it. They want it in the browser. They don't want to have to know even how to open Excel. And they want it across the internet, but securely, right? And you have that. And the biggest thing that nobody talks about, I know, I'm done. What do you call it? The hook? Right, okay. The thing that to me is the more important than all of this, because it's all pretty pictures otherwise, is robustness, repeatability, and reliability, and security, which is really quite easy to maintain. So as a business opportunity, this is low cost, but the question now is how much are businesses willing to spend on this? So I just contracted with, I'm a little over. Who's after me? Me! Okay, fine, that works good.
But we need coffee.
Oh, we need coffee. Oh, well, we don't need coffee. Here, come drink this. But anyway, I'm almost finished. The thing I'm trying to figure out is how much businesses are willing to see that this is a need to have a professional approach, and how much they think this is going to be an end user product. I don't believe this is an end user product. I believe it's professionals either inside or outside who need to do this, because this ain't for the faint of heart. And you need to know databases, you need to know spreadsheets, you need to know graphics, you need to know the business, right? All these things you need to know. It ain't for the faint of heart. But I've actually had one client where the guy told me just recently, Dick, they're not going to pay you to do Power BI off of this thing you're doing, because in our company, that's an end user tool. He told me that straight out. I went, yeah, sure. But anyway, this is what you run into. So that's the question. Is this going to be a premium product or an amateur product? I don't know yet. So there you go. Conclusions. This is very exciting tech. It is, that's funny. You see, I have fair-haired child. I missed an I. Oops. Fair-haired child. What I mean is Microsoft thinks this is going to cure cancer. Power BI is going to cure cancer and bring peace to the Middle East. They always have a piece of technology that is like that, right? And right now it's Power BI. And so that's good, because there's lots of noise that'll help you sell it in your companies. It is being sold to two markets: the high BI nerdiness, the nerdities, the really serious business intelligence gurus, and it's also sold as a low end for departmental solutions, when the fact the big need is in between. And that needs people like us to go out and do that. Thank you. I know I went a little over, but I hope I confused you. And that's it for now. Martin, take it away, Martin.